Welcome to the internet, live from our apartment in downtown Salt Lake City and a lovely house somewhere in the Logan metropolitan area. This is the Red Line Podcast. I'm your host, quote, Good Weather Enjoyer Dunstan, and these are my co-hosts.
Kyle, quote, Lightning Foamer Holland, and
Alex, quote, Freak Rainstorm Fielder. Today we're discussing one of the most remarkable successes in North American rail transit of the past century. We'll talk Mexican border stations and more after the news.
Do.
Great job. Nothing very interesting happened this week, according to Mass Transit Magazine at least, which is the only reliable source of transit-related news. But there is a rather silly story from Dart in Texas. They've apparently just installed electric car charging ports at their Glen Heights Park and Ride, which was the most exciting news in the entire magazine this week.
That's hilarious. Have they realized that the park and ride model does not work to attract ridership yet?
Dart has not, and probably never will, given that they live in Dallas, Texas.
Like, it's nice to have park and ride available in some locations, because it's useful for some people some of the time, but it sounds like they're trying to use it to attract ridership.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to work too much, because I think if you invest that much money into an electric car, you're going to want to drive your electric car and not park it at a transit station.
Interesting.
Well, I think the idea is that they put it at this transit station specifically because it's the only place in the Dallas metropolitan area that it's faster to take transit downtown from than to drive. So, there you go.
Great.
Great job, Dallas.
So what you're saying is that BART should build like a 200,000 stall parking structure just on the far side of the bay?
Yeah, and just turn all of West Oakland into a parking structure.
The people would be for that idea.
Well, if only because it would reduce the number of people living in West Oakland, which is something that, San Francisco Bay Area planners have historically been very much in favor of via building 1 billion highways through that area.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this has been the news.
Do.
Okay, Alex, how about you ask the very important question that we have here?
Okay. The question for this episode is, what is San Diego?
Great question, Alex.
That's a terrible question.
Be quiet.
That is so vague in scope.
You just don't like the bit that everyone else who listens to the
Such
podcast
an
thinks is funny.
uninteresting question, too. Like, it's not even a good hook.
I think it's a pretty good hook, but
What
I'm
if we
kind of
added-
biased.
What if we had an A to the San Diego? What is a San Diego?
Then it's slightly quirky, but still the same thing.
Okay, well, I don't care what you think. So,
Oh.
yeah, get wrecked. San Diego is an oceanside city in the southernmost reaches of California, hemmed between the mountains and the sea, very romantically. It's the 8th largest city in America with just over 1,360,000 residents and is the core city of a metro area with about 3.2 million people. It's known for its importance to the U.S. military, its beaches, its nearly perfect weather, SeaWorld, and the world-renowned San Diego Zoo.
Didn't realize it was quite that big.
Yeah, I don't think being known for SeaWorld is a very good thing, but
It's something. I mean, other
I guess
places are known
they
for
can own
Disney.
it. Yeah.
I too love to be known for the horrific exploitation of wild animals. That's what I'm going for in my life.
You must be a San Diego.
I'm a San Diegan. I don't know if that's a demonym or not. I'm gonna look that up real quick.
It is the demonym now.
It is? Oh, it's a demonym now.
Yeah.
What are you, like a Loganite or a Loganian? Like what's the demonym there?
I don't know, but Loganite sounds the most Utah out of all of those options.
Yeah.
True. Other fun facts about San Diego. Its airport is the busiest airport in the world with only a single runway. Yeah.
Cool.
They have
That's pretty
space.
impressive.
I know.
No
They-
space for a second
They
runway.
have no space for a second runway because there is a massive naval aviation base like 20 feet away.
It's not just because it's not like one of those weird coastal airports.
Oh, it is a coastal airport,
Oh, it's
but
both.
you can't expand into the into the channel because otherwise the Navy wouldn't be able to sail 10 aircraft carriers through it at once.
Right. Therefore, they stuck.
Yeah. Also, it's quite a dense metro, relatively speaking, because of the geographic constraints imposed on it. Has about 4,500 people per square mile aggregated across the entire urbanized area.
That's impressive.
Mm-hmm.
That's good.
For the whole metro.
I love a good,
that's really good.
I love a good geographic constraint.
Couldn't be us.
Not yet.
We chose to ignore it and instead build Tooele. I'm also going to go out on the limb of saying that San Diego may actually be an underrated city in a lot of ways, because everyone's like, oh, California, it has sun.
LA, San Francisco.
But otherwise, it's so underrated. But in San Diego, you get Seattle housing costs with San Francisco weather, and I think that's pretty good.
Yeah, that is pretty cool.
So,
And you don't have to do some sort of awful commute.
Yeah, you don't have to do a 60-hour mega commute to your crappy office in Silicon Valley like you do in San Francisco. So that's pretty good. All right. So the history of San Diego's public transportation, or as I have written on this document, the olden days. Guys, you'll never guess when streetcars began operating in San Diego. It was 1886 with a mule-drawn line.
Wow, that's essentially the same time as literally everywhere else.
Yes, and then the next year in 1887, the first electric street railway opened up with the San Diego Electric Railway.
Okay, that's kind of fast.
I think that what happened is that the mule line and the electric line were in planning at the same time, and the mule line just won.
Ah, that's funny.
Mule supremacy.
Did they ever have any cable cars or anything like that?
I don't think they had any cable cars. It's not a very, hilly city.
Just good old wooden wagons.
Yeah, omnibuses is what the preferred term is. Next thing. Service would gradually expand both in terms of streetcars and bus routes over the next 50 years, only interrupted by the Great Flood of 1916.
So San Francisco had the giant fire, and San Diego had the giant flood, or the Great Flood.
That was an earthquake and a fire in San Francisco.
At the same time.
Yeah.
I've never heard of this Great Flood. Would you mind elaborating?
Basically, so it's a really complicated story, and I would really recommend that everyone actually research it, because it's really hilarious. But basically what happened is that El Nino went really hard, and then it got blamed on a conjurer, a magician, who had, released some kind of magic dust into the air to create rain, and then too much rain came, a dam burst, and the entire city flooded under, 4 feet of water.
Oh.
Wow. Well, I was hoping there would be a fun little folksy story like the Chicago fire, but...
You and I have different definitions of fun.
Yeah, the Chicago fire, a fun, folksy story.
Well, the whole, what was it, a cow in the barn tipping over a bucket or something?
Oh, yeah, no, I'm going to continue to choose to believe that it was, in fact, the magician who made it happen, just for funsies.
See, it's kind of funny now, because we actually can do cloud seeding, so...
So maybe
they would be stunned.
He was from the future, maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe. Alright, that's enough making fun of century-old mass casualty events.
It'd be nice. There wasn't that mass casualty event.
What?
Only 10,000 people died. I don't know how many people died in that.
You didn't even check.
No, because it's a side note. This is not the Red Line Podcast Great Flood of 1916 episode. This is...
Alright,
also,
back...
we can't bring him back from the dead. Maybe the guy who started it could, but we
Okay, back to trolleys.
Service on San Diego's final streetcar line would be fully replaced by buses in 1949, making it the first of California's large cities to fully ditch streetcar services. These final cuts occurred just 1 year after the system was sold by its original owners and renamed the San Diego Transit System, still a private company at this time. But after the new ownership, surprise, surprise, because this definitely didn't happen anywhere else, failed to revive San Diego's flagging ridership over the next 2 decades, the struggling company was bought out by the city of San Diego in 1967 and renamed again, and this is a big shocking name change, to the San Diego Transit Corporation.
This is pretty the uncreative, anti-creative. Even.
They changed the last word.
Wow.
Huh?
Why'd they change it at all?
To do that.
Alex is probably correct. It's like the very beginnings of horrible California consultant culture.
Mm.
Soon afterwards, after, they were like, we have a train, or we have a bus now, and it belongs to the city. They were like, turns out maybe we should have more than a bus and create higher order transit.
Interesting. Since if nobody had noticed that just having a bus thing has been not working for a while.
What do you mean, flagging ridership? I definitely didn't put that 2 lines back. So, San Diego's trolley, it's called the Trolley. It's not actually a trolley. It's
not.
A pretty bog standard light rail system in most ways.
But they called it a trolley because it sounds cute.
Because it sounds cutesy, yeah. So, just be aware that as I say San Diego Trolley, you should not be thinking of like a PCC streetcar, although they do have one of those. You should be thinking of like
vaguely modern light rail.
UTA tracks, but different trademark.
Ew.
Slander over from Alex. I've entitled this section A Lucky Break because that's what happened. So in 1975, the San Diego Region's Metropolitan Planning Organization, then known as the Comprehensive Planning Organization, very
creative.
Yeah. Now we're named to SANDAG, which I think is the San Diego Association of Governments.
Okay, I hate how they acronym that.
It sounds too close to sandbag.
San and Diego Association of Government.
Yet another association, or another consequence of the Great Flood, is that they named their regional planning organization the Sandbag. So they began serious planning for higher order transit in the San Diego region by publishing a plan that called for nearly 60 miles of, quote, intermediate capacity transit, unquote, a system that would soon be fleshed out into what we now call light rail transit, or LRT. So this is the naissance, the birth of light rail in the U.S., because, they've already been doing it in Germany for a long time, but then they were like, hey, maybe we should give that a try here.
Yeah, that's early. 75.
Yeah, that's the earliest. You are correct, Alex.
Yeah.
So, other developments, like the state improving funding options for public transportation, which was actually signed into law by none other than perpetual enemy of the pod, Ronald Reagan.
Wow.
Including allowing some gas taxes to be spent on rail projects, allowed the MPO's recommendations for rail transit to be taken seriously.
Reagan funding mass transit?
This is when he was governor and not president, I should be clear.
Did he just, do a 180 or something?
Well, you have to understand that, a California Republican, right, can't exactly be...
You can't get votes if you just go around not funding anything ever.
Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough.
I'm surprised the funding came from the gas tax. That feels like something that would never ever happen today.
I think you're probably correct. People don't like road money being spent on transit now.
Which is fair, because the gas tax has always been meant to be a user fee paid by road users for roads.
Well, what if we improve the road experience by not building more roads?
Concept.
Ooh.
I know, big idea. Yeah, so, I am amused that he has become like a perpetual antagonist on this podcast.
Yeah.
But this time he gets his redemption arc.
We talk about public services.
Well, this is a moment of not the old service conundrum that we love to talk about so much. I know.
Something got funded on purpose.
Mm-hmm. It's true. A number of studies were undertaken beginning in 1976, studying heavy rail, because if you'll remember, BART was completed shortly before this. So they kind of wanted to build a BART for a minute there, which would have been cool.
Yeah, objectively.
But they didn't do that. They also studied light rail and some all-bus alternatives, probably taking a cue from Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh?
That was an accident. My headphones fell off, so I made a weird noise.
I'm sure Pittsburgh had some pretty cool transit going on at the time.
They built busways.
Oh yeah, those ones.
They thought about building a busway, which it turns out is most of the time a bad idea.
Most of the time, yeah.
With the one exception of Ottawa. So, but how did the corridor open up in such an important commercial city? Because San Diego is a big port city, right? So the rail lines there are very valuable for...
So it's not like other light rail, where they just take freight line that's been abandoned.
Hashtag not like other light rail. Yeah, the rail line here was in full operation at the time. And it didn't just open up for nothing. So, but, as I said in the beginning of this section, a lucky break. A literal hurricane called Hurricane Kathleen destroyed the line in 1976, giving Southern Pacific Railway an excuse to file for abandonment. This was denied because the government doesn't particularly enjoy railways abandoning their lines.
Can't the government just get their crap together and buy all the railways if they want to run them however they want?
No.
Oh, okay. Never mind. Anyways, continuing.
Oh dear. Yeah, it destroyed it, and then Southern Pacific was forced to try and sell the line to anyone that would buy it, which enabled the Metropolitan Transit Development Board, which was the group in charge of building the system, to buy up the line for pennies on the dollar, which was like only $18 million for like 100 miles of railway.
Dang.
Yeah.
That's
or
good.
rail alignment.
Well, at this point, mostly rail alignment, as we discussed the hurricane kind of.
Yeah.
The most recent hurricane did not seem to do the same thing. So.
And did this acquisition have any long-term effects on freight service?
Not really.
Cool. Guess that worked out.
They did a UTA where they're like, you can have it at night.
Yeah, they did a UTA. UTA invented this model.
I don't care. I will refer to it as they did a UTA.
Okay, sure. So anyways, they got line, the run train.
Yeah, correct. So the Metropolitan... that's a real mouthful. I'm going to say the MTD... That's also a mouthful. The MTDB moved fast and began construction on the new line barely more than a month after the purchase was completed. This was
What?
Before...
Has that ever happened? Was this before NEPA?
This was before CEQA.
Oh, which is NEPA
I
or
believe.
worse. Okay.
I think. Or maybe I'm incorrect, but either that or they already had the environmental review finished.
There's
month.
no way they would have had it that soon.
They were planning ahead, man. They were being smart.
What sort of agency would do that even in the absence of any environmental review?
A smart one. So, a month, and then the new line was to be a bare-bones skeleton of what most light rail lines look like today. It was mostly single-tracked, with only 40% of the actual track being replaced. 14 Siemens U2 vehicles were purchased and had to actually be shipped in from Germany because they were the first light rail vehicles in North America.
Understandable.
Also, rather than buying new rail, most of the jointed track was simply welded together. And the only new section, the part that street ran in downtown San Diego, was also built at as low of a cost as possible. They literally just took a road that wasn't well paved and paved over it with new light rail lines and closed it to traffic.
This is really starting to explain why this is the, comically inexpensive example of light rail.
Yes. They were very concerned over costs because they feared that the feds wouldn't be willing to pitch in any money, so they relied entirely on local funding, which, again, seems to be a thing that only ever happens in California.
Yeah. Kind of weird.
It's crazy. Did they build it? They built it cheap for that reason, but did they also think that they would get the ridership to get the funds to eventually do it better?
So they didn't, and that's why they built it like that without the federal funding, because they were scared that since San Diego was kind of a car city at that time, that the feds wouldn't give them any money.
Good for them.
All right,
They
so
at least got something.
yeah. So how cheap was it?
So the bare bones system cost an astoundingly low $83 million to complete in total, a mere $5 million per mile. Even when adjusted for inflation, the system only cost about $21 million per mile, less than most street-running BRT lines today.
Astounding. Not saying which street-running BRT systems.
Oh, GX. Sorry, I had a little sneeze there. Yeah. Which I have put under this just a bullet point with a single word, astounding, because I cannot overstate how incredible this is, given that even the super cheap light rail systems that were built soon after, like UTA, the original North-South line was, dollar adjusted for today, about $50 million. The original Max line, about the same. So this was cheap even for the very cheap standards of early light rail.
That's amazing.
I know, I wish we could return.
All you have to do is reuse garbage old track.
I see no problem. Our track's garbage anyway.
And have single tracking. So maybe we've evolved a bit.
I mean, the single tracking did come with some downsides. That could only run 20-minute headways. And it ran from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m., so it didn't have great span of service. But despite this, ridership exploded, and a further $30 million was spent to fully double-track the system and buy 10 more vehicles to improve service. Essentially $7.5 million per mile in total after it was fixed in 1983, 2 years after it opened, which is about $26 million a mile today, still about half the cheapest light rail ever built.
Which is impressive.
Oh, that's really good.
Yeah. So then, as ridership improved, the system continued to be expanded. In 1986, the East Line was built, which is now the Orange Line because they've...
Le San Diego Trolley, Le Est.
Yeah, San Diego Trolley d'Est. Yes. This is the Rem de l'Est, but San Diego Trolley, and
sure,
not obscenely expensive. So this was East Line ran from downtown along the same corridor that the Blue Line, which was the South Line at this time. It cost very little as well because it also reused crappy SP right away. With no single tracking this time, though.
Hey!
They were evolving slowly.
And finding money.
And then in 1989, the East Line was extended further to Spring Street, taking the East Line out of San Diego city limits for the first time.
Whoa!
Service would be further extended to El Cajon, which is 4 stops more later that year.
Whoa!
Yeah. They really started, Go ahead.
So, what did they do for stops? If they built it that cheap, did they just, put a concrete pad down?
That is actually a factor that I forgot to mention here, but it is basically a concrete pad because the original U2 vehicles had steps that reached basically all the way down to track level, so you didn't have to have basically any platform at all, unlike, even Siemens SD100s have steps that start pretty high above track level, but these were just right there, so you just had basically the sidewalk you could board off of almost.
That's hilarious.
Jeez.
So reuse crappy old track, lots of single tracking, buy barely any vehicles, and have them reach the ground. Yeah.
Yeah.
That would make it cheap.
So, and also, notice how quickly they're extending things. The original line opened in 81. The fixing of the original line finished in 83. The East Line opened in 86, and by 1990 it was, way out of there. So...
every 2 or 3 years they're doing something big.
Yeah, this was a pattern established in the early days of light rail, and I think we can see it with a lot of different agencies. In 1990, the downtown loop began service with the East Line looping back to terminate at 12th and Imperial, where the 2 lines joined for the downtown section. The Blue Line still terminated where it had terminated before, because they didn't want to have 2 things end of line at the same place anymore.
Fun.
And then in 1992, the South Line was extended north.
Okay.
This is like how the Northern Line in London is actually the most is actually the southernmost line of the tube.
Lesson learned, don't name your lines after compass directions.
Yes. It was extended north to Little Italy with a new stop at the Amtrak Coaster Station, which was called Santa Fe Depot, although the Coaster service, which is their commuter rail service there, wouldn't actually open until 95.
Cool.
Coaster sucks, by the way. It's like Frontrunner, but worse.
That's not really...
Frontrunner.
It carries like 2,000 people a day.
Oh, how many trips? Like 5?
No, a lot of trips, actually. It runs like 2-hour service during the day and at night, and then 40-ish minute service during rush hours.
Weird.
So it's bizarre.
But the ridership is low because it sucks.
It used to be pretty good. But anyway.
Okay.
And then in 1995, 3 new stations opened on the East Line to Santee, the present terminus of the system in that direction. 1997, the South Line was extended again north to Old Town to meet Coaster. Also, the South and East Line were now officially referred to as the Blue and Orange Line, so we can stop using that cursed thing.
Color naming is the best naming.
I do think that the South Line had every right to be called South, though, and you know why?
Why?
Because it goes to within 600 feet of the Mexican border, making it the furthest south line in that part of the country.
What, do you
that's
just
physically possible.
Do you just get off the train, do the border crossing, and get on a different train?
Yes, you can actually walk directly from the San Diego Trolley to a border crossing.
Cool.
And then just walk into Mexico if you want, or vice versa.
Cool. And they have a train
That's
on the
insane.
Mexico side?
No, no.
Aw, they should get one.
There might be a bus, but there's probably not a train.
Cool.
So anyway, I'm kind of wanting to try that now. Just go fly into San Diego or Amtrak into San Diego, and then grab a trolley down and just walk into Mexico, get some food, come back maybe.
All right then.
Sounds fun. Okay. And then later in 1997, the Blue Line was extended a further 8 stops north to Mission San Diego.
Cool.
Yeah.
Sweet.
In 2001 or 2002, the numbers differ. I couldn't figure out which one it actually was. The MTS, or Metropolitan Transit Service, was founded, which absorbed the Trolley Corporation, because at this time there were 3 different transit operators in San Diego County. There was the San Diego City Bus, which was the one we discussed earlier, the county buses, and then the Trolley Corporation was its own thing. So
lovely.
They decided to put them all into one thing, creating the Metropolitan Transit Service.
That seems like a good idea.
Very true. And then in 2005, the Green Line, new line, opened on a freeway-ish alignment between Old Town and Santee, although passengers initially had to transfer from the Green to Blue lines at Santee because the trains that the Green Line used did not work on the rest of the system.
Was this before or after the construction of E-Bar?
Before.
Oh, okay.
So what had happened here is that the new Green Line used SD100s instead of the old U2s.
Is that because they want some of that Made in America funding?
Yeah, so they used SD100s, which are the classic cars that we have on tracks, and those had to be boarded from a higher platform than the old U2s, so they couldn't run over the same tracks, and the U2s couldn't run physically onto the Green Line tracks because the stairs wouldn't fit. So that was a good idea. The trains were more accessible than the old ones because the U2s you had to get lifted up, on an elevator into the train, whereas these, they could just do the bridge plate thing that has cursed UTA forever.
Yeah, but it's an improvement.
Marginal, but that's good.
What do you mean, Alex? You don't want to get lifted on an elevator into a train?
But that sounds kind of fun, but not if I had to rely on the service.
So hard to put the platform and the train floor at the same level.
So true. At LA, at San Francisco, all places that had that, within a relatively short distance. But I digress. So then in 2011, they decided to make a heritage streetcar downtown for some reason. It operates only during special periods and runs in a counterclockwise loop around downtown.
On existing track.
On existing track and generally at less than an hour frequency.
Good for them. As long as they didn't spend any money on it.
Well, they spent money on the streetcar, but on no new tracks, thankfully, so...
Well, good for them.
Yeah. I think that we should do that.
Yeah.
Except with a UTDC that...
Yeah, build a
we should have
loop
kept.
and use Ghost UTDC.
Yeah. Then, from 2010 to 2015, they decided to take a modernization program to allow for modern low-floor trains on all lines instead of just
Whoa,
the green
accessibility.
line. So the MTS actually... So this is a really interesting thing of how much UTA and San Diego have in common. To keep the 3-car trains that they liked using that would fit on their downtown blocks, they actually had to work with UTA to create the S70 Ultra Short, which is the weird, different S70 variant that we use so we can have our 4-car
Slightly
trains.
shorter.
Yeah. So that they could keep their 3-car trains on their downtown blocks. Portland limitations strike again.
Yeah. I mean, in our case, I think we only have the Ultra Shorts because we built for the SD100.
Yeah,
And we
for
just
4-car
need-
platforms, and we wanted
And we just
4-car
needed
trains.
something the same length, yeah.
Kind of fun, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of fun.
Kind of fun. The U2s were retired first, with some SD100 vehicles being maintained in service until today. I already mentioned UTA rolling stock commonalities. And then the final extension was in 2021, actually. It just opened. The Mid-Coast extension brought Blue Line service back north to Old Town, which had been replaced by Green Line service when rolling stock's differences were fixed. It just went... Green Line went downtown instead of doing the weird transfer thing anymore.
Uh-huh.
And also 9 stations further north, which takes it like half of the coaster line, making coaster.
Man, they
even
really
more
like
useless.
extending the X-South line.
They really like extending the south line to the north. Yes, I agree.
That's funny.
So, if you want to understand the service pattern changes on this, you really just need to go watch Vanishing Underground's video because it's impossible to visualize without actually looking at it. So, there you go.
Yeah.
And that is this. And as Vanishing Underground would say, bringing us to the San Diego trolley system that we know and love today.
San Diego's Trolley today, it's a high-quality network with uniformity, good speeds, and decent service levels. It has 15-minute service on all of the lines.
I call that decent, not good.
Wow.
That's what I was meaning to say in my head.
Any rush hour stuff or just 15 flat?
15 flat.
Again, with the UTA commonalities?
Yeah.
And it's supplemented by a metric crap ton of bus service and connections to regional transit providers like the Coaster.
So Coaster. So I've put here Coaster and then Sprinter and Metrolink. So Coaster end of lines at the same place that the southernmost LA commuter rail line end of lines, and they also have a weird hybrid rail light rail line that connects there. So you can technically connect from the San Diego transit services to LA transit services as well as to Sprinter, and also Amtrak. So
Technically, it just takes forever and some weird ill-timed transfers.
yeah.
Great.
Well, that's by far the most successful of the modern California light rail systems, except LA, but that's really more of a light metro most of the time. So eat dust, Sacramento, and San Jose.
Yeah.
Woohoo.
That's very fun. Should be noted, it's actually about as, the same as Portland Max in terms of both length and pre-pandemic ridership. So they carried about 115,000 daily riders per day before the pandemic, which is almost exactly the same as Max carried, with almost exactly the same amount of track mileage. So
Cool.
it was a little bit higher per ridership per mile because they had about like 55 miles, but potato.
Good for them.
Yeah. Today it is the most recovered U.S. light rail system, carrying about 107,000 people per day, which
That's
is
really good.
like 90% of ridership, I think.
Yeah, how'd they pull that off?
Being good.
Service improvements?
Extension and service improvement.
Whoa, you improve service and more people ride your line?
Fascinating, I know.
Somebody should tell other transit systems.
What a novel concept.
Yeah, novel concept. CVTD could never. UTA could never. Although they did improve service on the 3, didn't they? I don't know.
I think it's improved to half an hour, but that's only during school semester.
Oh.
Oh boy.
Love that
But
for them.
I haven't ridden it yet, and I just bought a new bike, so I'm probably not going to ride it.
Understandable.
Until winter.
Until winter.
Yeah.
But you can just walk up the hill to school, so...
Yeah, we'll just see how good they shovel sidewalks around here.
Get some crampons to walk to school up the hill.
No, might even need snowshoes, we'll see.
That would be cool. Snowshoe to school.
Can you get some
Ski
skis
home.
as well? Ski right back down the hill? Yeah.
Kind of jealous.
So that brings us to another question.
Why is San Diego?
Yes. Or more,
Apostrophe S light rail story so important.
yeah, why is San Diego's light rail story so important? It's both because it's both our past and our future, right? It's our past in that it started the early light rail renaissance, building cheap lines with good service, and it inspired other cities like Portland, Salt Lake City, Sacramento, St. Louis, Calgary, and many others to build light rail systems of their own. It kind of made the transit world a better place by being willing to take a risk and adopt a new technology and way of doing things.
Yeah, without this, who knows how long it would have taken for somebody to import some German vehicles and start running them on crappy track.
Right. Well, San Diego, crawled so everyone else could walk.
Or waddle a bit
Waddle.
in this economy.
I would say that Portland's downtown alignment proves that maybe they were waddling a little bit. And it's also our future because the new lines that they've built recently are much faster and more grade separated, recognizing many of the failings that the original style of LRT had. They're also continuing to build at a decent cost, which is something that we sorely need.
You think that might have something to do with the thing where they just didn't stop building and keep building?
Except they did stop building.
Oh,
if we look back, right, the last extension was the Green Line in 2005. Between then and 2021, they didn't actually open anything new other than the Silver Line
Oh,
and
yeah.
modernization program. But that's just...
Never mind then. They're just good.
Yeah, they just...
Well, did they do all of their own track maintenance and such? So they at least kept some of the knowledge?
That could be part of it, is that they did rebuild a lot of the system, as we discussed, during,
The modernization.
Well, yeah, because by then it was 30 years old, so...
And the tracks weren't very good to begin with.
Yeah. I mean, what do you mean? You don't want to ride over your welded track at 55 on the South Line? So, I should also, I just want to emphasize again how much the San Diego Trolley is UTA's DNA. We are exactly the same in so many ways. In that we took, we made a big visionary purchase of reused or out-of-service rail lines to, build our trains on. We have the same rolling stock. We have basically the same service pattern. Not the same ridership. I wish we did, but...
Yeah. Not the same feeder bus system either.
No, and San Diego's a lot bigger than Salt Lake, so... But, anyway. In conclusion, the San Diego Trolley is great, but not really a trolley. I don't know why they insist on continuing to call it that. And if they want to make it better, they should run more buses and make Coaster not suck.
Concept.
So, yeah, how are we feeling about... I put in the title of this thumbnail text, : America's Best Light Rail, ? Is this America's Best Light Rail, ?
Quite possibly.
It definitely could be.
What I want to know is, can we still build light rail for $5 million a mile if we want to?
Do we want to reuse flooded track and weld it together?
Why the heck not?
Anything to keep costs down?
Anything to keep costs down. The cost snake is too powerful.
Hey, what was the one in Texas that they just ran DMUs on existing track?
That's the Austin one. And it
There you
cost
go.
them more than that.
Well, inflation adjusted.
Inflation adjusted, it cost them more than that.
How?
I don't know. Great question.
Figures.
Yeah, you notice that the orange line is kind of squiggly, isn't it?
Yeah, that's special.
We're playing around on Google Maps now for listener context.
Apparently the right-of-way is just squiggly trademark.
Yeah, that's because it's an old rail line built before.
Trains
We
could go up
discovered
hills.
that you could create straight lines with trains. And also it has to go around hills a little bit, so... it's fun. It's nice that there's very little freeway running generally, except on the green line, so...
Yeah, freeway running's a pain
Well,
in the
and the
ass.
north of the blue line, I guess. I take that back.
Well, unless they want to start building some, REM-style median stations.
True. There is also one subway station on the system, which is pretty cool, I think.
Yeah, where's that?
San Diego State University.
Cool. Was there just, a hill in the way or something?
I think they just wanted to tunnel under campus to, not be a pain.
That would have been fun if we did that here.
Yeah, wish we'd done that.
Would have significantly improved coverage.
The future frontrunner station directly under Utah State University.
Oh, please.
So, yeah, that's all I got to say. Anybody else have anything to say before I go into the closing spiel?
I think we covered it pretty good.
Yeah, sounds cool.
I didn't know the history. Now I do. Informative podcast.
Now you know that magicians can, in fact, create floods.
Yeah, I didn't know the system was, so big and well used.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Okay, so thanks for listening. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe if you're on YouTube, or to follow us and leave us a rating on iTunes and Spotify. If you like what we do here, you can become a member on Patreon. Patrons receive early access to all of our episodes, exclusive content, as well as occasional merch drops. Speaking of patrons, at Super Double Tracked Coaster tier, we have Zach Adams at $69.69 a month. And
what's the coaster got now? Half a track?
yeah, probably. At slightly, I don't know, 3/4 tracked tier, we have, or 1 3/4 tracked tier, we have Generic GT, $35 a month. At regular frontrunner tier, $10 a month, we have Curtis Herring, Devin Zander, Mike Christensen, and Phobos2390.
At $5 a month, our red line tier, we have Brian Smith, Christopher Whaley, DJ
Hi, Will.
Watkins, Elijah Kinsler, Jacob Whitecotton, Jesse Mayo, Reluctant LA resident Robert P. Walsh, and Scott Harris.
And at Blue Line tier, $3, we have Alex Steikelski, Ben Busaf, Bradley Bondi, Ethan McDonald, Evelyn, G4, Gonza12, Jack Dean, John Heron Gorman, Martine Hecker Martinez, Matt Gray, Seth, Zach Forstott.
And at our $1 green line tier, we have Capil.
Thank you all.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, thank you. And we had a meeting recently, and merch is in the works somewhat.
Yeah,
so
more merch.
More merch.
Yep.
Alright, see y'all next week.
Bye.
Thanks for listening. Bye.
Yeah, we're gonna cover a different super cool groundbreaking light rail system next week, or do we run out of those?
There are a lot of them.